Hi. Today I'm going to discuss about the topic on nuclear war and whether Sun Tzu can predict nuclear war in Europe. It's a heavy topic, but I will use the approach of Sun Tzu and I will explain to you why the risk is high. It's not as low as some of people in the world thinks. Now, firstly, Russian, all right? Now, I'm not expert in Russian culture, but as far as the military aspect of it, I'm familiar. You look up the slide again, and you find that I started with a map of the current scenario, eastern part of Europe. And I want to use the same approach that I have used for the Taiwan, Ukraine, and from the ground analysis that we analyze from the ground. And Sun Tzu always says that you focus on the ground. The general must know, and from the ground, you formulate the strategy. And there you find, right, there's a book in Russian, but it's actually a Russian translation of my work, The Mind of Sun Tzu, Reminiscences of Ancient Strategies, Mind of Sun Tzu, that won an award in Singapore, top book prize. And it is translated into Russian. And my name is Teck. Now, what I'm trying to say is that the Russians are very interested in Sun Tzu, and I think they know Sun Tzu far better and more deeply than the other cultures, including the Japanese. The Japanese are, of course, good knowing Sun Tzu, Musashi, and strategy. Coming to the point, right? Do not forget that the Russians have actually won the war against the Japanese on the army, on the land. The Battle of Kharkiv in 1939. I thought that was the reason from my own analysis. Way back, why do the Japanese turn around and then go into Southeast Asia and not pursue that path towards Russia has got a lot of resources too. And I think the battle fought by Zhukov. Now, Zhukov is a good general, a good strategist, top strategist. And you find that, again, in the Soviet-Japanese War of 1945, that lasted 3 weeks, 3 days, the Russians destroyed the Manchurian Japanese army. So I'm saying that as far as recent history is concerned, right, the Russians are good in strategy. And therefore you find also that earlier on, right, as I said, right, if you were to study the ground first, and then if you look at the ground that I've posted up, there's a growing NATO threat to the Russian. Look at it from the Russian perspective. You must take the Russian perspective. And you see that from the map itself, with Finland and Sweden joining NATO, right, the shape that emerges is that of a scorpion. In Chinese it's called xie, and the Russian word for that, scorpion, is very close to scorpion. And therefore you find, right, that the shape is taking shape. That of a scorpion on the map, if you impose on the map of Eastern Europe. Now, in other words, the fear of being encircled is really there. It is not something that should be taken lightly. Don't forget, right, Hitler in 1941, June, in this month, actually launched an attack against Russia, the Battle of Barbarossa, the name, of course, of the German emperor, but I would call it barbaric, the Battle of Barbarism, you know, Operation Barbarism, and that shook Stalin, took Stalin by surprise. Stalin couldn't believe that the Germans, right, was attacking Russia. And based on that historical context, the Russian has a good rationale. And now Mariupol have found that there is in fact neo-Nazism within Ukraine. And Ukraine is just next door to Russia. Now, therefore, you find that all right, Sun Tzu says, all right, if you've been encircled, ground where we are being encircled, then you should start to more. You should use stratagem to think of a way to solve the problem. But then with Finland and Sweden joining NATO, then the whole, you look at the map and pretend for once you're in Russia and look from Russia outside and look at the NATO scenario, the landscape. It's like a Scorpio, and when a Scorpio start to attack you, right, the tail up, as I showed you in the slide above, a bit dramatic. But then you will say that we are actually you're Russian. You will say we are in deaf ground, right? We are in deaf ground. Are you trying to annihilate the Russian Federation? And in that kind of ground, if you deem that, right, you're now, because of recent changes, that in fact you are making Russia a deaf ground, then clearly, all right, the Sun Tzu will say 死战. That means we fight to the death. That means, very simply, that the use of nuclear weapons is called for. If that happens, so I'm afraid that the moment there is a war and the Ukraine crisis cannot be settled and lead to a wider war, the chances are very high that Europe will be a devastated wasteland, nuclear wasteland. And of course, I use this as I said, my main purpose is to foster world peace by highlighting from Sun Tzu perspective, right, the risk of nuclear war. And of course, doing this, all right, I'm doing it at a high level abstraction. I'm using the method Sun Tzu uses. Sun Tzu uses the scorpion, right? And Sun Tzu may well do the same, looking at the map and configuration of the map. And Sun Tzu in his Art of War uses the snake, uses the eagle, and so on and so forth. But then here, right, I like to conclude, and I hope that please take the Ukraine crisis seriously and end it by a peace treaty. No more dumping of weaponry into Ukraine. Please think. I'm shocked at the leaders in Europe. They are really not deep thinkers. They panic like common folks. They don't think deeply. And I really hope that the people in Europe can elect good leaders, the right type of leaders, to think deeply and to analyze and understand problems deeply. Thank you.